Ready to move to the next level in your product career? I'm Shobhit from Intentional Product Manager. Join me as we discuss ways to help you stand out in your job search and your career so you can have more impact and make more money. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intentional Product Manager podcast, where we explore product management careers, choices, and mindsets. And I'm often joined by world-class product leaders. I'm your host, Shobhit Chugh, and today with me is Bala Venkatrao, who's SVP and GM at Harness.io. He's an advisor, angel investor, previously ran his own company, and I've known him for a long time. So Bala, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
No, great, Shobhit. I've been following you on LinkedIn. Congratulations on all the success. You've been kind of doing these podcasts, which are very informational and helpful. I listen to them once in a while too. So it's great to be here. I know we connected a while back. We're trying to find a time slot, but hey, this is a good time. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. Just so you know, we're recording right before the holidays and making the most out of the time we have. So let's dig in, Bala. You've had quite the journey. Atlassian, Unravel, before this Cloudera, and then now at Harness. Tell us more about Harness. What's your role? What's your charter over there?
Yeah. No, I've been at Harness for a little more than 4 months. And it's been an amazing sort of experience journey. It's fast paced, it's a company that's kind of moving fast. We're seeing a lot of pull in the market. At the end of the day, we are kind of building an AI native SDLC platform, software developer lifecycle kind of management. And the thesis is pretty straightforward, right? There's a lot of code being generated by AI tools, whether it's Cursor or Gemini or Claude. But we are positioning, or Harness is being positioned as everything for AI after code, right? Because the reality is maybe only 30% of any software development is related to code and design and thinking through it. 70% is what we call as the toil. All the work it takes to get the product really in the hands of the customer, right? Because you've checked in the code, but then you need to do everything around integration and testing and build and deployment and feature flag and cost management and all of that work. And that's really a lot of workflows that developers have to account for. It takes a lot of time and effort, and that's what Harness is doing, right? I think prior to Harness, a lot of times companies end up with point products, or they write a bunch of scripts to do a lot of the work. It's kind of fragile. Harness has built a cloud first AI native platform to be able to really orchestrate and streamline all of these workflows. And we're seeing a lot of pull in the market, right? It seems like the right product at the right time, built for the right market. And our job is to really make that 37-40 million software developers. And that is growing, right? With all of this vibe coding and others to be able to bring their innovations to life.
Congrats on all the momentum. And recently you guys also raised funds. So congrats on that.
Yeah. It was a big round. I think we raised a Series E with Goldman Sachs kind of participating, valued the company at $5.5 billion. Of course, we have a lot of momentum, large marquee customers. We are well over 250 million kind of ARR, growing at 50%. And clearly, I think we want to double down on that momentum and make Harness the platform of choice for every company and every developer out there.
Tell me more about your role over there.
So I've kind of joined them as the SVP and GM to lead the platform business or the platform product, right? So think about Harness has got around 14 products or modules, covering every aspect of your software developer lifecycle, right? But all of these products are built on a substrate, the platform substrate, and that's what my team is responsible for. So think about this platform as providing the building blocks that many of the teams can leverage, things around security and compliance and scale and cloud portability and cloud infrastructure. So a lot of these are common building blocks, and we don't want every team to repeat the same building block over and over again. And that's the leverage, right? As a platform vendor, is we can keep adding new modules, but the effort required to bring up a new module is significantly lower, right? We call it, I think Jyoti, who's the founder of Harness, he kind of talks about the startup within startup model, but the startups are possible because of the foundation we're built in, right? So we have that foundation, but also a lot of things around commerce and billing construct. All of that is built by the team. And the thing I'm pushing forward is what are the things a platform can do uniquely. So for example, I think some of the initiatives that we've kicked off and we're driving is around our data and AI and analytics and knowledge graph, right? That's the key thing. Like if you think about like AI, what are agents, right? Agents at the end of the day, like at least in my view, it's two things. It's like context and actions, right? Data and actions, when they come together, that's what agents is. If you just give a AI agent, whatever, to an LLM and say, go and make it happen, it'll stumble and fumble and hallucinate. You never know what you're going to get, right? So you need to give AI the right context, and that context is the data that you have. The data that you harness, no pun intended, right? Like at the end of the day, we have all the different aspects of SDLC, and we have so much of the data and the metadata that we collect. We sort of like create a data model or a knowledge graph that now our AI agents can query that, right? And that becomes a very, very powerful, I would say, differentiator, because based on that, our AI agents can do all the workflows that it's supposed to do in a way that kind of meets the customer requirement, the compliance requirements, and having the right guardrails, right? So a lot of those efforts are driven by my team at Harness.
Somehow on this podcast, I've had quite a few platform product leaders, and like it's been such fascinating conversation because you really have to think very deeply about what's unique that the platform can provide, what goes in the products, like all that thinking. I love that mental framing around it.
Yeah, I think the ethos, the mindset I bring to my teams and to all of Harness is like I keep telling the customers, come for the products and stay for the platform, right? Like the platform is the leverage that we kind of provide. And also like the mantra is like, what is the leverage we can provide? Leverage both to internal teams and to customers, right? And they bet on the Harness platform, they get so many more, like all these products are working seamlessly because they're part of the platform. And that's the advantage that we bring to the market.
I'm sure a lot of your mindset has been shaped by some previous experiences. So let's start to dig into some of those. Tell me more about your time at Atlassian and how you helped scale that business.
So prior to Harness, I spent like 5+ years at Atlassian. Of course, I took some time off between Atlassian and starting Harness, was evaluating a bunch of ideas myself, kicking the tires. As you know, once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So you're kind of like exploring ideas. But Atlassian was a really good experience. Like I joined Atlassian right as the pandemic was kind of like taking off. I was transitioning out of my own startup. We probably can get to it at some point. And Atlassian was a great opportunity because they were looking for an enterprise and a platform leader like me to help them figure out how to kind of like build their cloud more for these large enterprise customers, right? Atlassian has always been known for product-led growth, and like they have a lot of momentum in the mid-market and SMB, but they were trying to go up market to enterprise customers. So they wanted like a product leader who could really work with these large enterprise customers, work backwards and build out those foundations in the cloud platform. So that's what I did. I came on board to drive those initiatives, launched under my leadership. We launched something called as the Atlassian Cloud Enterprise. And that's been really, really successful product. I think it scaled from zero to several $100 million in ARR over the last like 4 or 5 years, because the market was there, right? Like we would go and pitch to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. Everybody wanted to come to the Atlassian cloud, but they had those requirements around scale and compliance and security. So that's what we did, and we bundled it as part of the edition. So that was my first kind of role at Atlassian. And then based on the success of that, I actually led a fairly sort of a unique and interesting opportunity called Atlassian Economy, where the thinking was, hey, given this platform that we are building, the cloud platform, how do we create economies around it, right? So it was a pretty bold, out of the box kind of thinking, saying, okay, can we light up our ecosystem, our third party? We looked at inspirations from companies like Salesforce with the Force.com platform, or even Amazon retail, right? Like they started off providing their own products, but like now Amazon kind of retail offers everything as a service, like warehouse as a service, payment as a service. So we took a lot of those inspirations and said, can we really create an economy around the platform? And some of the key products that I was responsible for as part of Atlassian Economy, of course, included the marketplace and the ecosystem and the developer teams and the commerce team. And under my leadership, we scaled the GMV. That's one of the output metric you measure for any ecosystem or economy, and we scaled it fairly significantly. And I think before I left, it was close to like $1 billion in annual run rate. I think when I joined, it was like 300 million or something like that, right? So it's like tripled over the last 3 or 4 years. Of course, we had like tailwinds, and we had like a lot of Atlassian customers migrating to the cloud. So we benefited from that, but we also wanted to make sure these enterprise customers come to the cloud and leverage a lot of the cloud apps that were being offered through the marketplace.
You mentioned a couple of very interesting things, but first I'm going to dig into, like you mentioned briefly, entrepreneurship, right? And I know you were at Cloudera before, so you've been in roles running product teams, then you've transitioned into entrepreneurship, and then back into running product teams. So tell me, first of all, just how did that transition look? And how did you talk about your experience as an entrepreneur when you were interviewing at Atlassian?
I think, Shobhit, to a great extent, like it's just a mindset. Right? It's a mindset. Like as an entrepreneur, what are you doing? You're hustling, right? You're hustling. You want to push the agenda. You have an idea, and you're trying to bring that idea to life, right? And that same mindset is applicable like everywhere, I would say, whether it's like a small startup that you're trying to bring to life, or even in a large company that you're trying to bring an idea to life, right? Like I am sometimes puzzled. People come and tell me like, hey, are you a big company person or a small company person? I really find that question quite puzzling, right? At the end of the day, like you really need to drive outcomes, right? And you want to kind of like bring new ideas. And that's what personally excites me. I like to work on like new things, like break new grounds, and being able to kind of like go from 0 to 1, think of an idea. And of course, once you get to 1, it's not stopped. You need to keep scaling, right? Even there are a lot of entrepreneurial hacks, right? Where you're kind of like trying out a bunch of new things, you're experimenting a bunch of things. So for me, it's been that mindset, right? And I kind of brought that mindset to Atlassian, like created a bunch of 0 to 1 products, and they were very successful. I did that. And now I'm sort of bringing that same energy to Harness, right? Like being able to kind of like think about new things that I can bring to market, and then help kind of scale the company.
I think one thing I caught on to as you were talking about it is like, you just didn't see a difference. You were like, hey, either ways, I have to deliver outcomes. I have to deliver results. And I really admire that. And this is like one lesson I keep telling my students, that if you believe strongly that your past experience has value without the title of product manager, it has value. I love the way you talked about it. I know you're a big believer in having a founder mindset even within large companies. So in practice, how does that look? And does anything change when you go from a startup to a large company?
Yeah, I think in my view, again, founder mindset is like having the conviction and the belief to do something, right? Like many times what happens is like people are afraid to take decisions. But like I view, like we get paid only to take decisions as we get into more and more of a leadership role. And like you got to take decision based on data and facts, right? Like I personally, I kind of make sure I'm out there talking to customers, like and really understanding where the market is headed, because that's how you build your product intuition. Like whenever I talk to my PMs, like in my one-on-ones, the first thing I would ask them, how many customers did you talk to this week or last week? Were you on any escalation calls, right? Because the product craft is all about building that product intuition. And the only way to build that intuition is to go and talk to the customers, right? And when you do that enough, like you have a certain conviction of this is where the market is headed, this is the product or this is a solution you ought to build, right? Of course, you want to listen to everyone, but you need to have a strong point of view. Whether it is your manager or the CEO of the company, you go in with that level of confidence, right? And you, of course, spar and debate. Like as a founder of the company, you have an intuition because you started the company. You have like maybe 10 years of experience since you started the company on working on something. But even as a newbie product manager, the more grounded you are in what your customers are asking for, the better off you are, right? Because now you bring the data and facts to the conversation, and that helps make everybody better because now you're making those right calls, right? So the founder mindset is all about like not just taking, like somebody is going to tell you do this and you just do that, right? It's more around going back to first principles thinking. Is this the right thing, right? Is this the right thing first and foremost for the customer, right? Are you doing the right thing for the customer? Then working backwards and saying, is this the right thing for the company? And then you're saying is the right thing for my team and myself, right? If you have that priority order, like chances are you're doing a lot of the times you're making like a lot of right calls, right? And as I said, like I think Amazon kind of talks about it. as leaders, hopefully you're making more right calls than wrong ones, right? Otherwise you're out of a job. So you're making calls, you're kind of like thinking ahead, right? If you're not just thinking like a week or like a month or 6 months, you're kind of thinking 12 months or 18 months and 24 months and placing those bets. And hopefully those bets are the right ones for the customer and the company. And it's like a winning strategy.
Let's switch topics a little bit. We're going to talk about a very, very popular topic right now. Everybody wants to know about this, the role of AI in product management. You've mentioned to me before that PMs need to engage deeply with AI, not just generally talk about it, not just put AI product manager on their LinkedIn. So tell me more. What's your philosophy on this topic?
I think with AI, Shobhit, I feel like I'm a kid in a candy store. There's so many things kind of going on and so many amazing stuff, like where every day I want to try something. Right, I'm kind of like downloading an app or like trying out something, coding, vibe coding, deploying it, anything, and that's possible, right? Like you don't need to be like a hardcore software engineer, right? As a product manager, like I can get started very quickly because now the language is like natural language, right? I don't need to do much of coding. I can just use natural language to be able to create an app or create a mock-up and like have those conversations with my engineering team. So I think AI is again like giving you superpowers as a PM to do a lot of things that frankly earlier you were a little bit constrained or hesitant to do because you were like, yeah, like I'm good at like talking to customers and maybe writing a PRD, but I can't go to the next step. Like I can't do the wireframe. Like why? You can do that very, very easily, right? So I think in my view, AI is all about like really understanding what are the tools out there. Again, going back to first principles and thinking about if you're really going to build agents, what's the right way to build agents, right? What is the context you'd provide? What are the guardrails you can have? And I think nothing substitutes to going back and really thinking through it, right? Many times, like people just keep running after something, right? Like, and I think that's fine to do that, but carve time out. Put time on your calendar, like just go and think back from first principles. Is this the right thing? How will this AI like interactions work? How will agents work? What will they do? Because at the end of the day, agents are also trying to mimic what humans would do, but at scale. Like if you had to have humans do that, you probably have like 10 people do the job what single AI agent will kind of do, right? So, and I think this is also an opportunity for a lot of the PM to kind of like step up their learning. Right? Like people are still fixed in the old ways of doing, I'll do everything just via Jira or a PRD. I think there are a lot of new ways and modern ways in which how product management is kind of evolving, right? I would not be surprised if like AI kind of like we see product managers evolve where they do end to end. They write a spec, talk to the customer, understand that, write a spec, use vibe coding, like do the mock-ups, maybe write the code, do the PR check-in, everything, right? So we will see, like I think I was talking to one of my colleagues, we'll see this concept of product owners evolve. Where they're not just like a manager, but they own the outcomes end to end, right from an idea to actually delivering the feature. And you can do that, right? Again, some features are more complex. You have distributed backends and you need to do that, right? But I think some of the smaller features will start to see an evolution of that paradigm for sure.
I think it's a very exciting time because those strict boundaries are somewhat starting to blur. Like, hey, when does a designer come in? When does an engineer come in? I think it's people should be fine with that sort of new world where they can do part of the job of an engineer without having to build out infrastructure that they have no expertise in. I'm sure you talk to less experienced PMs, and I see many of them are just like waiting for someone to teach them instead of diving in. Like, what's been your experience on that side of things?
And I think this is true with any change, right? Whenever change happens, people get uncomfortable, right? But one of the lessons I have learned is, and probably Shobhit, you've seen this too, you've done a bunch of changes. Whenever there's a change happen, that's when you learn the most. Right? If you're kind of like settled in a job and you're doing the same thing, like you're used to the routine, you don't learn. But when you start to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, right, where you're like, oh, I need to pick up an area, I don't know much. That's where most of the learning happens, right? So similarly on AI, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I can't like do this. Like I'm like, why can't you do it? Like, why is it so difficult, right? Like just download the app, try it out, kick the tires. You will still learn something, right? So I think the concept of like, I think learn it all instead of know it all, right? You're constantly kind of learning, pushing the envelope. So, and I think you have to carve time for yourself. Otherwise, your calendars are really busy. You don't have like time to do that. Like I carve time on Fridays. I read some papers on the latest. I think there was 2 weeks back, there was an amazing paper on like I think agents in production, like why is it working, what's not working. It's put out by a bunch of university folks. Great learning, and I shared it with my team. Or I kind of like download a new piece of software, kick the tires with that, and I think it gives me a lot of sense on where things are headed, right? And many times I point my team to, hey, take a look at it. Like, have we considered this? We are trying to build this internally. Is this the best use of our time and resources, or should we kind of like buy a product or a capability like that out there, right? So constantly kind of learning, and then trying to do your current job with the new learning, right? Because if you just keep learning and you're not implementing it, then you're not building the muscle, right? So you need to kind of learn something, and next time, like when you're doing a review of your PRD, I want to see like what AI capabilities you've sort of used. Like for example, just last week I had like somebody I was interviewing, and he came and did a nice presentation of his view of like where what we should build. At the end of it, I said, okay, where are the mock-ups? It was like, I didn't know we had to do mock-ups. I'm like, yeah, you could just use Lovable or Vercel to kind of create the mock-ups. He said, yeah, that's a good point. And next day, like he created an amazing set of mock-up, right? So that's the expectation. I said it's like I would do it, right? Like, and I do it too. Like I just create mock-ups and share it with the team. So I think that's what we need to do. Have like constantly have that attitude of, okay, what is that I want to learn, right? How's that I'm going to learn, and like be open to the possibilities, right? Like what you the beliefs that you held in the past may not necessarily be true, because things are changing really fast. Right? Every day there is a new model, there is a new company building something agentic, or like there is a new ways of doing it. There is new protocols that are coming up, and you can like use ChatGPT and others to quickly learn and synthesize, and then start to formulate your point of view. Right? Like that is probably, in my opinion, a good mantra to be ahead and at least keep pace with what's going on.
We talked about a bit of your career, founder mindset. We talked about AI and product management. Let's start to talk more about leadership at this point. You know, you've led multiple teams across startups and public companies. How has your leadership style and philosophy evolved over time?
Yeah, like a lot of my leadership thinking, like Shobhit, were also grounded during my time, early formative years as an engineer, like working at like Sun Microsystems and other places, where I think it was more of like a peer sort of mentality, right? Like leadership is not up there telling others, you should do this, you should do this. I think that's such an old school way of kind of thinking about leaders, right? Like leader is someone who's just kind of like inspiring others, saying, hey, this is where we need to go. But at the end of the day, it's really a collective effort, right? You're bringing everybody along. Like everybody are your peers. Like they know, in many cases, your peers may know more about you in a certain area than you do, right? But as a leader, you're kind of like inspiring people and say, hey, this is possible, right? But otherwise, what happens is that people are okay with like the current status quo. So you're kind of pushing the envelope and you're saying, okay, let's go there. And then you as a leader are helping people address the roadblocks. Right? If a roadblocks happen, you kind of jump in, right? You roll up the sleeves and you collectively solve problem, right? I think that's the key thing. And I've done that like consistently over like my career, is like where I've led projects or products. If the team comes back and say it's not possible, I'm like, why is it not possible? Let's go and figure it out. Right, let's go and figure out, and like there should be a way for us to go and sort of address this, because at the end of the day, we are doing this for XYZ reason, right? Solve a customer problem, help them be successful. And if you do that well, revenue will flow, you will grow your career, you will do well in your career, right? So I think that's the first unlock for me. As a leader, you're kind of bringing that positivity, you're bringing that optimism, you're kind of like working with your team, and you're really inspiring others and saying, yes, it's possible, it's doable, let's kind of like do that, right? And then over the last several years, being in leadership roles across large teams, small teams, again, I don't measure leadership by the number of people you manage. I think that's a very, such an old school way of looking at it, right? Like you can be an IC, but still you can be a fantastic leader. Right? It doesn't really matter, right? Like you're kind of, again, as I said, you're looking ahead and like pushing the team to do much more than they even imagine. I think that's the true kind of a leader. And like someone like, even if you leave the organization still continues to do really well. That's a hallmark of a great leader, right? If you're the choke point and everything is coming to you, you're taking the decision, then you're not really a leader, right? You have to empower others to make decisions, right? Like you need to sort of like create a whole bunch of other leaders. In my view, that's true kind of like leadership, right? So over the years, I've built a simple framework for myself that I've used pretty successfully. It's called as the CATS framework, CATS. I do have a cat too at home, so it's called like the CATS framework. But the idea is the first thing as a leader is you bring clarity. You bring clarity for why does your org exist? What are you supposed to do? Why do you do what you do on a day-to-day basis? Like, what is your North Star vision, right? What is your mission? What is that you want to achieve? And how do you really set up the right set of like OKRs or KPIs? So it creates a lot of like transparency in the organization because now people have clarity in terms of their roles and responsibilities. So that's the first C. The next A is the accountability, right? Because now once you have the clarity of what you need to do, you have the right set of people and teams driving that, and you give them the responsibility, but also the accountability to deliver, right? And you as a leader, you're empowering them, saying that, hey, this is what we collectively agreed. This is what you need to accomplish. Go and make it happen. And if you get to a stumbling block, come back and tell us and we can collectively solve the problem. Or maybe you have a creative way to be able to solve the problem, right? So the A is the accountability, right? Then it comes to like the trust and transparency, right? Like you need to be transparent in terms of your actions, in terms of your communication. You can't tell one thing to your team and behind the scenes you're telling something else, right? I've never believed this concept of upward management, downward management. What is this? Right, just be transparent, right? Like have the same thing, call spade a spade, right? If you're kind of telling something to your team, you should be telling the same thing to your management team too, right? Why should there be any difference? There's no need to sugarcoat. If there is a problem, it is a problem, right? And call it kind of like as a problem that needs to be addressed and how the team is kind of acting towards it, right? So that I think creates a lot of trust in the organization too. So when they look at the leader, they say, yeah, here is someone who's not sugarcoating or telling kind of things differently. And it is like a tough act to be a leader like that, right? Like a lot of times I've seen people don't want to kind of do that. Like they say two different things just to kind of like make sure like they look good in the books of their higher ups. But I feel that's a wrong way to kind of like lead, right? And the last thing is the S, which stands for servant leadership, right? Like I'm very much a servant leader. I'm here to serve like my customers. I'm here to serve my team. I'm here to sort of serve and make other people like successful, right? And if I do that well, indirectly, I will be successful. I know that, right? Like if I can make each of my team member amazingly successful in their career, right? Like help them grow. And I've had amazing mentors in the past who helped me sort of grow and get to where I am. So if I kind of do that well for my team, set them up on a path for success, like indirectly, like I'll do well too, right? So it's all comes back together and having that framework and approach. And yeah, that's what I've been kind of like practicing and doing for many years now.
I love how you've thought through it and like codified it for yourself. You have a way of thinking about it. Let's talk about like transferring some of this to others. So a lot of product folks, they want to figure out how to become better leaders, how to move into exec roles. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I think the key thing is to take on hard problems, like problems that other people don't want to do, right? Like many times you're in a comfortable role and you keep doing that and you're like, why is that I'm not getting promoted? Well, I think I keep telling my team is like there's a day job and then there's a night and a weekend job. You kind of figure out, okay, what is that you want to do in your day job, right? Day job, if you keep doing day in and day out, great. I'll give you credibility for what you've done, right? But you need to kind of figure out, okay, what are the things you're doing above and beyond, right? Like, how is that, what is that you're coming back and like wowing me about things that we haven't thought through, right? Like, those are the arts that help you get to the next level, right? Get you like more visibility, get you more kind of recognition, give you more responsibility. And like sometimes you need to kind of like raise your hand, right? It might be the most messiest problem, but if you have the courage and the conviction that you can go and solve that, raise your hand, go and kind of like take the bull by the horns. Like that's something I've repeated to myself many times, is take on the challenge head on and go and solve for it, right? And like go and make that happen. And once you do that, like what happens is that it gives you confidence, right? As I said, as product manager, you get paid to make decisions. And what I've seen across like many successful leaders is the more decisions you take, the more confident you get. right? Because you're kind of like building that muscle, you have building the intuition, right? I think, and people start seeing that as a leader, and they'll give you more responsibility. You start kind of like increasing your scope and the opportunities that are in front of you.
I just want to add some stuff to this because this is fascinating. This is from two people who I follow who are not product leaders. So one is this guy, Alex Hermosi. He does a podcast for business leaders, entrepreneurs, and he talks about, hey, take on hard problems. But the reason why people don't take on hard problems is because they don't know how to solve them. And that is the very definition of hard problem, is that right now you don't know how to solve them. But if you take it on, you'll figure it out. And that's what the other person, Brendan Bouchard, talks about. Is like the ultimate confidence is confidence that you can figure something out.
Yeah, I think there's a fear of failure. Oh, what if I take it on? If it kind of fails? But again, like it's not like anybody else knows it too. So you take on the problem again. If you have a very first principles thinking, you go back and say, okay, is this the right way to do it? What is a better way to do it? You break the problem down, right, into smaller pieces, right? You get the right team. You put a structure. You say, you know what? These are the monthly goals. This is where I need to go. Start to show progress, right? I think they are very basic, fundamental things, right? But I think when people get onto this like gray nebulous problem, they get overwhelmed. They say, "Oh, it's not possible. It's like too crazy," right? But then if you take a deep breath, right, take a step back, and you kind of break it down, it is possible, right? Because if it's not going to be you, it's going to be somebody else, and he or she is going to do a similar approach, right? To be able to, it's not like there's one magic wand that somebody can like wave and solve the problem. It doesn't. It like seldom works that way. It's more around like having a collective approach, being thoughtful about it, making forward progress, having clarity in terms of what are the goals you want to set, where you want to get to. If you don't meet the goals, go and iterate, go and solve for that, right? And eventually you will get to the right place.
So Bala, this has been very thoughtful, energizing conversation. I mean, I always love speaking with you. This was phenomenal. Before we wrap up, any final advice for PMs looking to grow their careers, especially in today's job market?
Yeah, so I think be curious, right? That's the one thing. Like be curious, keep that like learn it, like the learning mindset, right? And like take on hard problems. I think if you have these things sort of built in, and you're always having a sense check on it, right? Like it'll go a long way, because a lot of things are in a flux right now, but it's true for everybody, right? Not just for you. So being kind of like curious and being able to learn, and you can learn from anybody, right? You can learn from somebody who's just graduated like yesterday, right? Or you could learn from somebody who's been in the industry for 30 years, right? So having that humility to be able to learn from like anybody and everybody and soak it in, and then being hands-on, like pushing the envelope, I think it'll keep you excited in terms of what you're doing, but it'll also come across as someone who is kind of like willing to be flexible and adjust and like try out new ways to solve like current problems or new problems that will kind of like emerge, right? So I think those are like the fundamental things that you need to keep in a sort of mind. And then if you take on like more and more bigger problems, you build that muscle to be able to create more impact. And impact is what helps you get more confident, get more recognized, and be able to scale up in your leadership journey, right? And like, you can't like wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be like an SVP and GM, right? Like, okay, that's a great ambition to have, but that's not the goal, right? Like, it's not like, oh, I want to be like an SVP GM. Like, it's the impact you're creating. And if you do that well, you will get there. Why stop at SVP and GM? You can be a CEO of a company too. Right. At the end of the day, like as a CEO, yeah, you're just problem solving, right? So if you build that mindset, you can get to wherever you want to.
And last but not least, if people want to learn more from you, follow you, what's the best place?
Yeah, I think they should kind of connect with me on LinkedIn. I do occasionally write like some post on LinkedIn. I think last year I wrote some post like on and off. I think these are the kind of things I would love to do as I'm starting to mentor other folks, both like within Harness and outside. And yeah, nothing like just sharing my knowledge and also learning from others. I think it's a good forum, and thanks Shobhit for creating forums like this, right? It's like two ways, right? Like you share something, people read, people reach out to you. There's a lot of serendipity here, right? And some of those relationships and connections you build now, it'll serve you forever. Like I know Shobhit for, I don't know, so many years now.
In fact, we were part of a program called Startup Leadership Program back in the day. Like, I don't even remember what years we were there.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. And so once folks kind of like reach out to me, I'm happy to kind of connect with them and just advise them or have a conversation.
Bala, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see all the amazing things you do at Harness.
And likewise, Shobhit, it was great to be on this podcast. And again, congratulations on your continued success creating a platform like this. And happy to help any ways and every ways I can.
And to our listeners, just so you know, in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you are listening to podcast platforms, we'll have Bala's LinkedIn profile so you can connect with him. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to just subscribe, rate it, share it with a fellow product leader, give them a gift. And until next time, stay intentional. And as Bala mentioned, stay curious. Hey, be sure to check out our website at intentionalproductmanager.com to see how you can level up in your career.